Well, hello, good people, and welcome to our live chat. This is actually live chat number 10. I can't believe I've done 10 of these now, but it's been great to be with you. Some of you have been with us from the very start, the first live chat. We really appreciate if you've been with us that long. Some of you are joining new today. It's wonderful to meet you, and I can't wait to answer your questions. I see on the big screen over here, the questions are just flowing in. It's like vocal wolves for technique, which you know I love that. If there's one thing I love in this life, it's vocal questions. So we've got a big list of them coming through, and we're going to get right started here with Karina Chen, longtime friend of ours. Karina is asking, Justin, please explain to us the various onset exercises and how they would help us to achieve results. Okay, onset exercises. Let's talk about that. What is an onset? An onset is how you get into the sound, okay, versus how you hold the sound or how you get out of the sound. That's called an offset. So your onset is how you get in. Now, if, for example, your voice is too weak, is too breathy, maybe your onset is too weak, that's when we need a stronger kind of onset exercise. That might be something like where I start with a little baby glottal sound. Other things that work really nicely are our voiced plosives. Things like a G, which would be ga, ga, ga. Something that helps us to have our onset be solid. All right, now that's if your voice is too light. Some people have a voice that gets too harsh, too pressed, too strained. Then we want to work the other way. We want that onset to be on the lighter side. So we might use perhaps an H, ha, 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 something like that. Or maybe a trill. Ra. Another thing that might work is a nasal. The nasal resonance helps to lighten the instrument. So maybe we give them a ma, ma, ma. All right, so now that's both sides of the equation. One side, we're a little bit too light. We use a stronger onset. One side of the equation, we are too aggressive and we soften the onset. Ultimately, what you want is the ability for a balanced onset. It's called a balanced onset. It's not too light. It's not too, harsh. It's right in between. That's a balanced onset. So that's a final goal for you. So I hope, Karina, that helps you understand onsets a little better. Let's see about second question here from Empress Psycho. Wow, that's another amazing handle, Empress Psycho. Very, very good. Let's see about this. I love your videos, Justin. Thank you, Empress. Question, I noticed when I sing certain consonants into a microphone, such as a P, there is a popping sound. How can this be avoided or minimized? That's excellent, Empress. Excellent. And not psycho at all. Very, very sane, very rational. So what we're talking about here is usually, again, the plosives, okay? But this is not a voice plosive like a B or a G. This is an unvoiced plosive like a P or a K, all right? Now, there's nothing wrong with these consonants, but when we're close to the microphone, what can happen is they can be too explosive, too plosive. So we have a or a that's going to make the mic make an odd kind of disturbing sound. Here's what we do. One way is to make sure that those unvoiced plosive consonants are non-pulmonary, okay? A pulmonary consonant is when I use my breath and I go or I can also do that same consonant non-pulmonary, and if I do a or a versus a or a, there's a much less degree of chance that it's going to pop the mic. The other thing that many radio announcers do and people in the recording studio is they replace that P, for example, with a B sound. So not popping the mic, but popping the mic, right? Popping, where it's like almost but instead of closer to a B. Those are two strategies for reducing the pop. Don't make it pulmonary, and replace it with a more voiced consonant, which has less of that flow of air. All right, very good, Empress. Wonderful to meet you. I don't know if I've met you before. She's new, or she, I don't know. Well, nice to meet you anyway. Okay, all right, now let's go right on to Jake. And Jake's been with us for 7 months. God bless you, Jake. Great to be with you for all these times. And I recommend vocal warm-ups or vocal exercises before singing songs. I got to level 9 of your course, and it's getting very vocal exercise related. Is it okay to use this level for song warm-ups? Oh, okay, well, cool. Jake, thanks for being a purchaser of the Voice Lessons to the World vocal course. Congrats on getting to level 9. That is seriously tough stuff once you're in those upper levels. You know, Jake, in knowing my vocal course, I don't know that that would be really a warm-up. In fact, the vocal course is not designed to be really a warm-up. It's designed to be a workout, okay? And so, like, it's Marathon Sunday here in New York. You don't go to the gym, for 45 minutes before the marathon, right? What do? You stretch for a little bit. Same thing is really true if you're going to be doing lots of song work. Don't overdo it with the technique. On a big technique day, in your practice, you might practice your technique for 45 minutes and then sing a song for 15. But let's say you have another day you really want to focus on your songs. Then I wouldn't do too much technique, all right? Because you're just going to get a little bit unnecessarily tired before you do your songs. On a song day, flip-flop it. Maybe do 10 minutes of warm-ups, and then you can get right into the song. All right, so you don't need to do a full technique workout every day. The vocal course is meant as a full technique workout. Jake, if you want to use the vocal course as a warm-up, each section starts off with a warm-up, a little breathing exercise, and then a couple little things. You could maybe you could do the first 10, 15 minutes as a warm-up and then get to your songs. Great question, Jake. Hope you keep plowing ahead to those higher levels of the course. They get tough. All right, now Lean Pisters. Our friend Lean, now pronouncing your name right, Lean, after 9 months together. Sorry about that, and thank you for your patience. Lean says, my main goal is to make very long and full sustains in all registers. It seems quite basic, but why could it be so difficult? Well, I can tell you exactly why. It was Karina earlier who asked us about onsets, okay? Our first challenge with building our voices and expanding to new territories is that onset work. How do I get into the sound, okay? But once you get into the sound, let's say it's your mix or falsetto, whatever you're working on, sustains are another matter. Holding the notes, okay? Why this becomes so tough is because by the nature of holding out a pitch, more breath will be getting through, okay? And we know that one of the difficulties with singing is breath support. We need to hold the air back. We need to have it be a small, steady stream, not let it out too much, not let it out too fast. But a sustain is, by its nature, more air. And so many singers will finally get their onset in a good place, but then sort of revert to less ideal habits as the note is going on. In other words, they use appropriate breath pressure for the beginning, but as they go, it starts to get away from them. Ultimately, Lean, you need to make sure that your breath is very constant throughout that sustained note. How can we create some environments to have success? Well, we start off with an onset kind of thing. Let's just say it's mum, 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 and that's just my onset. Mum, 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 mum. And then later, I'm going to start to do something like this. Mum, 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 mum. And then later, I'm going to do something like this. Mum, 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 mum. So I get that onset, 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 onset feeling as I'm holding the note. Then you can start to take those M's away, and we go mum, 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 mum. So I have longer vowels, shorter consonants, and then mum, 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 mum. Taking even more away, getting more used to the sustain, always thinking steady flow. Okay? You can train that all the way to a very long sustain. If breath is still a problem, try things like our good old friends, the trills. So you know your breath is constant, all right? But use building blocks. Don't just start holding out notes, because that's what's going to build those bad habits and reinforce them, okay? Now, we're going to Lise Moberg, which I know we've seen Lise before. Good to see you again. Hi, Justin. I hope you had a great weekend. So far, so good. I hope you had a good one too. I'm currently working on switching between chest voice and mix while singing songs, and I find it quite hard. An example would be I have a tendency to bring mix down to the lower notes after a high note, instead of switching back to chest voice. Do you have any tips or exercises to help me? Yes, Lise, I do. It's a very common scenario that you're facing there, and it's actually one of those blind spots in the world of vocal technique. And let me tell you why people often miss it. We think of shedding weight as we go higher, right? That's just good technique. We don't drive chest up, 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 up. That's not good. We don't just open up and get wider and use more breath and get louder for our registers as we go up, right? We know that's not right. So what do we do instead? Well, we start to lighten. We start to lighten. Hopefully not too far, but we lighten up. We shed weight off the register. Chest moves to mix, mix moves to head, head moves to flageolet, etc. We know that. But here's what we miss. We miss the downshift. We forget to get buffer, to get stronger, to come back to that thickness as we descend, okay? And it feels sort of wrong to us because we're thinking, well, I gotta lighten it up, I gotta lighten it up, I don't want to push. But on the descending gesture, you actually do need to, not push in a bad way, but in the sense of let me downshift. If I upshifted and shed weight going up, I can't forget to downshift back, coming down, or else the lighter gear that I've established up top will come down into the chest area and it'll be too weak. All right, so you gotta really downshift. How can we do it? Lots of different ways. One thing I might suggest to you is doing maybe a scale where you feel like you lighten up as you do the ascent and then purposely strengthen on the descent. So here's like a normal scale. But what if I have that kind of situation where I'm thinking as I go up, light, but as I come down, I'm going to go stronger and stronger and stronger. That might help you, Lise, to solve the problem. You could do a scale. Another idea would be to do a slide. So you could do just lit up with a light voice and ah, came back down with a strong gesture. So I'm actually kind of doing the reverse work that we're used to doing. Okay, hope that's helpful. The next question is from Kathleen Bennett, who I do think we've also seen before. So welcome back to Kathleen. Kathleen says, I have trouble with the quality of my voice between E4 and B4. It sounds dated. Think 50s style lounge singer. Oh my. Okay. I studied classical and I also did a lot of folk singing in my chest voice. How can I adjust my mid voice E4 to B4 and have a more contemporary sound, a more chest mix? Genius question, Kathleen. I just love it. And I think there's going to be other people who struggle with that, not just in a way that makes them sound like a 50s style lounge singer, but in a way that makes them sound like their chest voice is not in their control and their mix is not in their control. Why do I say that? The notes that you targeted, Kathleen, are exactly where females struggle. Okay, virtually all females. Those are the notes. A lot of males too, right there. Those are transitional notes. All right, and here's the thing, especially for a female voice. Talking just females now. You can drive chest through that area. You can. You physically can. E4 to B4. But if that's the only thing you do, you're not going to get a contemporary sound, because those big old-fashioned belts were sort of before the pop kind of belt came along, and they do sometimes sound dated, you're right, but they're also not as healthy as some of the pop belt. The pop belt that we hear in a lot of singers, let's just use the Queen, Ariana Grande, or well, the real Queen Bee, Beyonce. Those kinds of belts that you hear are not chest dragged up. And right there in the middle, anybody that has a contemporary sound, a healthy contemporary sound, is making some adjustments. Let's talk about what those adjustments are. Here's your solution, Kathleen, and all females in that area. Here's how you're going to train it. Go in that territory. E4 to B4. Go in that territory. Sing in that territory. And here's what you need to do. Do not open your mouth wider and wider. Keep it the same. Do not get louder. Do include nasal resonance. Do not flip to head voice. If you can do those things, you will have it solved. It's hard to do what I just said, but that's what you need to do. Don't change your mouth. It should not get more and more open. Don't change your volume. Do use your nose in nasal resonance. And don't flip to head voice. All right? If you can do that, you're going to notice a big change. But what I imagine you're doing, Kathleen and anybody with that problem, is right in that territory, E, F, G, and then up, you're starting to open, starting to widen, starting to get louder, starting to carry up more weight, starting to not using your nasal resonance, okay? All those things. So there's your reverse course, okay? Nice. All right, let's see what we got next. Who's up next? Oh, Sarah W., a new member. Well, welcome to you, Sarah. We're very glad to have you. And she has a question about whistle notes. I started practicing with your lesson, and sometimes I find I have two notes at the same time. Does that mean I'm on the right track, or I haven't found the whistle? Well, it's a tough one, Sarah. I probably would have to hear you to know exactly. Two notes in general is usually a spot on your vocal cords that is being kind of exploited. I don't want to scare you. I'm sure you're not injured, but everybody has little swellings and spots that come up on their vocal cords, not cysts, not polyps, not nodules, just little swollen spots. If you've heard a very famous recording by Layla Hathaway, it's like a live video where she sings 2 notes at once. Well, that's what she's doing there. She's exploiting the swollen surface on her cords. They're making a vibration, and the swollen spot is making a second kind of sound. It's really cool, but it's not like, wow, she figured out how to sing 2 notes at once. It's that she's exploiting a little swollen surface. So in general, I'm not really, it's not really the greatest thing to encourage, like 2 notes at once. You want to make sure you're not busting stuff up there, Sarah. So I'm not really for that. But what I will say is that when we're exploring our whistle and you're kind of on that chord surface, you heard just a split second there, I was able to make 2 notes. And to be honest with you, I did kind of find a little swollen spot on my chords during the practice. So why I'm for what you said, Sarah, is that it sounds like you're working on the chord level. That is how you're going to achieve it. So that sounds like you're on the right track, is that you're working on the chord level. You're not squeezing, you're not pushing, you're working on the chord level. Great. Just be careful you don't ever think that 2 sounds is a good thing. It's also not super scary. I don't want to scare you. It's just, we're not going to encourage that. Working on the chord level, I encourage. 2 notes, try to avoid. Okay? Good stuff. Lean says, I don't really mind about my tricky Dutch name pronunciation, Justin. Don't worry, haha. Okay, Lean, but I still want to get it right. So that's all good. That's all good. Okay, now we're to our friend Blaze Young, who has been with us, if not from the start, very close to it. So good to see you again, as always. Hey, Justin, I just wanted to ask, can we sing high notes in chest voice without getting flat? I also want to ask, is it bad to move one hand while hitting notes? I mean, I have developed a habit of moving one hand while singing. So is it bad? How can I get rid of this habit? As for the hand, Blaze, I think it's fine. I think hands encourage lots of things. You see riffers with a that sort of deal, or you see people, working on the vibrato, and they do to figure out the vibrato. I think the hands physicalizing your sound is generally an okay thing, just as long as you're also practicing, no hands, or using your hands in context of a meaningful performance. Okay, so just be sure you're practicing without it, and you will be just fine. Do it first to get it, and then take it away. Your other question, though, Blaze, about chest voice being flat. Well, yes, you can get to the point where your chest voice is not flat, definitely. But here's what you have to make sure you're doing. If you really mean to stay in chest voice, we're using the thickest mass of the vocal cords. We're using thyroarytenoid and lots of contact. That muscle will lower the pitch. All right, it'll make it beefier and lower. So if you mean to use chest, you're going to have to blow more air to get up to the note, not be flat. That's okay to a certain extent, but then what we have to do is not use all that meat, because then you're going to be pushing and slamming. We need you to start to thin out to a mix. Okay, so Blaze, if you mean to use 100% chest voice and rock and roll, you're going to have to use more air. Or you can start switching to a mix, healthier, better, awesomer. Okay, but that's just how it works. All right, hope that answered it. Okay, and now we have a Musicals 81. Wonderful to see you again, Musicals 81. We've seen you a few times. She says, hi, Justin, smiley face. Where I live, Scandinavia, it's already late evening. so I have to put my baby to sleep. Well, God bless your baby this evening. And before I do, I came to ask a couple of questions. Is whispering bad for you? Or could it even be beneficial in achieving an open throat? I'm imagining Musicals 81, you whispering your baby to sleep, and maybe that's why you have that question. Just throwing it out there. Anyway, whispering gets a really bad rap, and I can't quite understand it myself. It's a very natural thing to do, and so many things that are very natural get this fearful bad rap in the world of singing. Belting being one of them. It's clear that millions of people belt all the time, and yet there's still people that will say, oh, belting, that's harmful. Okay. Whispering is one of these things too. Oh, clearing your throat would be another great example. Everybody clears their throat every single day, but yet you're going to find people that say, clearing your throat will destroy you. Okay, now I'm not talking about aggressive belting. I'm not talking about, okay, but it's natural to belt. It's natural to clear your throat, and it is natural to whisper. Okay. What could be the warning signs is if you are blowing lots of air, just like any kind of singing, if you're blowing lots of air, whispering loudly. I don't know if a loud whisper is a great thing for you, but most people aren't whispering loudly. The whole idea is to keep it quiet. There shouldn't be any damage or problems with the whisper. Remember, the whisper, the vocal cords are doing one of these. It's not really a chance of them getting damaged when they're not even making contact. Unless you blast them with air, that could be uncomfortable. So Musicals 81, I wouldn't worry about it. Your question, could it be beneficial? It's nice to be able to part the waters and be, super good with finding that or that or that, going back and forth between breathy, clean, fried, clean, breathy, being able to have vocal cord control. That's fantastic, but I wouldn't add it to your practice. All right, great. And now, we got a lot of questions. Yetta NG, again, Yetta, the greatest last name I ever saw. Member for 5 months. We really appreciate you, Yetta. Is there 2 types of mix? Singing from the chest voice, then past the passaggio, shift to head voice, to using chest voice and head voice at the same time. I don't know how to use the M1 and M2 muscles. Okay, I will just clarify. The question is, how many mixes are there, basically? And the answer is, unfortunately, infinite. All right. The idea of a mix is that we can blend different percentages. But here's what I want you to understand. Mix is M1. Okay. Mix is M1. So you use M1 and M2. All right. You can make an M2 sound that is very strong sounding, but that is just a resonant M2. That's a resonant head voice or a reinforced falsetto. Example would be, if I'm in my falsetto and I'm not going to go into M1, I'm going to stay in M2. What can I do in M2 to kind of make it? Yeah! Woo! I can make my M really strong, but the question is, does it ever become a mix? No. It's just a super resonant M2. Don't try to pawn off M2 things as a belt. Don't try to pawn off M2 things as a mix. They are awesome and helpful, but they're not a mix. The mix is when you're still using degrees of M1 in your recipe. From there, you've got the thickest thing I could possibly do, and then you got all kinds of other ones that are, pretty small with their TA usage, but they're still a kind of M1. All right. So infinite mixes within the blending of M1 events. Hope that clarifies. Okay. And now we have Jan Barros, who I know we've seen. I love all the repeated guests. This is so cool. Getting to know you guys. Justin, Brendan has told me to ask you, oh wow, what is the difference of sound between a head voice with compression and a head voice of some TA activation? Oh, well, this might actually help Yetta's question. Okay. So let's say head voice with compression. And what we're talking about is compression at the backs of the chords, approximation. All right. That is kind of what I just did, where if I had a breathy falsetto, I could do like that. And I can approximate my falsetto. I can approximate my M2 to get a really strong sounding sound, but it is not, as you say, TA activation. It's approximation. It's a different kind of compression. It's more than one kind of compression, which is confusing. There's the approximation kind, and then there's the puh kind. And the kind most people want is the puh and not the huh. Okay. So what about coming down into that head area with TA? Okay, so let's do a mom, 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 mom. Am I in mix? Mom, 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 mom. No, I could do mom, 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 mom. Doesn't change it. One's breathy, one's not. Still falsetto, still M2. Now, mom, 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 mom. If I get that TA going, if I get that TA going, I move out of my falsetto and I start getting back some of the TA, and that's what makes it into a mix. Okay? So this is the difference. I hope this helped you. This is the difference between the breathy or clean kind of compression and the TA versus non-TA kind of compression. Really good to separate those. All right. Oh, we have a new member, Vampire Roast, Vampy Roast, a roast of vampires. Very cool. Hey, Justin, hi. Thanks a lot for the love you put into your work. Thank you for your encouragement. My question is, sometimes my voice sounds trapped in my throat. It sounds muddy. Sometimes my voice sounds trapped in my nose, sounds too nasal. And sometimes my voice sounds free, just like I want it. Problem is, I don't know what to do with my body, that I'm in control with my voice. That's where I'm struggling. How do I balance my body and my voice? It's just randomly hit or miss. It's frustrating. Well, you're not alone, Vampy Roast. I mean, I think everybody can feel that way. The only thing I can really tell you, though, is this seems like you're at a point where you got to get some feedback. You got to get some help. Because I love to hear that sometimes your voice is just really free and everything's functioning how you want it to, but without outside feedback, it can be really hard to know why is it going wrong when it's going wrong. When you have a good day versus a bad day, sometimes it's hard to know why on your own. So I know it's a kind of lame answer, but I think you do need to see somebody, a voice teacher, that you trust, a vocal coach that knows technique. If you can't afford that, you might find somebody in your community, like another singer or a choral director or somebody, but they got to give you some feedback at a certain point. Because it sounds like right now you're guessing, and sometimes you're guessing right, but I don't want you to be guessing at all. So you're going to need to get that feedback. So I don't mean to dodge the question, but there's no real way I can answer that. And there's no real way anybody can answer that until you put yourself in the care of a technician or somebody that can give you honest and hopefully positive feedback. Okay? All right. Let's go on to Jiho Kim. We've seen Jiho before. Yeah. Hey, welcome back to Jiho. Hi, Justin. You caution us against pushing too much breath to go higher. Yes, I do. But we need more breath when we sing high notes and sustain long notes. How do we know when we're pushing too much breath? Yeah, good question. Here's a few answers. You know when you're pushing breath for high notes and for sustained notes. A, when you're running out too fast. That's a big no-no. You can't hold the notes very long. Breath seems to be running out too fast. You know that you're pushing breath when higher notes are significantly louder than lower notes. Or sustains are not evenly volumed, but the volume seems to be changing drastically when you hold the note. You know that you're pushing breath when your voice is getting quite fatigued fast. You know that you're pushing breath when you feel a lot of upper extrinsic tension having to hold it back. Because the body did not hold it back, something else has to hold it back. What is that something? Could be jaw, could be tongue, could be larynx, could be extrinsic muscles. All of those things are indications that you're just pushing air to achieve the results. All right? Should be able to do it quietly, also loudly, but quietly. Should be able to last a long time. Should not get fatigued. Should not see lots of extrinsic tension. All right, hope that helped you, Jiho. And now Terry Nosworthy, another friend from many of these chats together. Terry says, how are coloraturas sopranos able to sing the F above soprano high C so loudly? I'm jealous of Mado Robin and Minnie Ruperton. Yeah, I don't know that they do sing it that loudly always. They can, but I think first you've got to really coordinate your registers. And I'll just say this. If we're talking, Terry, about opera, the voice types matter, okay? So if you are not a coloratura soprano, you may never be able to sing the F6 in a big full voice, all right? Voice types really do matter and apply when we talk about opera. So there's something physiological about the instrument when it has to project, all right? So coloraturas are women who are naturally very high and light voices, who have also trained that top for a long time. I wouldn't call the F6s that I've heard loud. I would call them resonant. And when you're that high, you don't want to be blasting. You want to be really toned up with your resonance. So they have a volume component, but it isn't, I don't think it's volume that we hear, wow, that F6 is so loud. It's, wow, it's so resonant. And some of those things, Terry, have to do with the physiology. If you're a female, I encourage you to try to get to F6, just across the board, but in flageolet. Contemporary females, most females will eventually be able to get to F6 in flageolet. Pretty much only a coloratura is going to have a big resonant F6. All right? Where are we at? Ooh, that's fine. Okay, now we got paparazzi. Okay, what a handle there. Do we know paparazzi? No. Okay, hey Justin. When finding the right texture, sound in my mixed voice, I feel it's a 2-step forward, 1 step back in progress. Is that typical? Yes, it is. And I really like that. I really like that question. And I really like that, that thinking. The voice is not just one big ascent with no steps backwards, all right? It's your body, it's your artistry, it's your emotions, your spirit, it's your mind, and it's little intricate coordinations. If paparazzi, you're experiencing 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, yes, that's common. And also, I'm thrilled for you because that's very positive. You are moving up the mountain. It's just that there's bumps along the way. The thing we don't want to have is where the voice is getting worse and worse and worse. And we're starting to feel like I can't hit the notes I used to, and I'm blowing out my instrument, I'm getting tired faster, I feel like I'm using muscles and habits that I don't want to use. These are deteriorations. That's not so great. But if what you're saying, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, that means you're on the right track, and I suggest you keep going. It's never going to be perfect, but you're going to be moving ahead. That's great. Okay. Now, Colin Joseph, our friend, Colin. It is good to see you again as well. Oh, what is the proper volume for singing? Because it feels like when I put too much volume into the mix, it causes disconnection. Yes. Can you talk about how to achieve proper chord closure instead of the outer muscles? Yeah, okay. Okay. The proper volume for singing. Slightly relative to each person. Some voices are just bigger voices, and some are just smaller voices. We can train to make them bigger or smaller, but it's relative to each person. What I would say is something around a conversational level is appropriate for most contemporary singers. If you're a contemporary singer, it shouldn't often feel like a shout. It should feel like the volume of a nice, energized conversation. That's about right, okay? So that's the right volume to use. Now, if we're talking about opera, it's different. Opera, it is a little bit more like a shout or a projected stage speaking voice, but we're using a different larynx position and set of resonators to make it carry. But if it's contemporary singing, you shouldn't be feeling like you need to project. It should feel like your energized speaking voice. Could I see back his question here? Yeah, so too much volume in your mix, Colin, will make it go apart. Can't tolerate it. And then about achieving proper chord closure, I think I've said a few things about this. About the onsets. It's where we started with Karina's question. Okay, chord closure means not letting the chords get too breathy or disconnected, losing TA. Okay, so we can use glottals, we can use voice plosives, g, b, can even sometimes use fry, that sort of thing. Okay, those are all strategies that we've talked about, so use those. Next, Janet Wilson, member for a little while here. We appreciate you. In musical theater songs, should one be using chest voice or mix? With such as Someone Else's Story from Chess, Reflection from Mulan as examples. Okay, great. For musical theater, Janet, I'm going to say mix. Because chest voice is too low. And there's not very many songs in a contemporary theater setting that are low enough to be using chest voice. All right, and chest is a fairly contemporary show still. It's a little old, but it's got a contemporary sound. And Mulan and Reflection, totally a pop belt. So the pop belt is, and the theater belt, that is mix, okay? Chest dominant mix or 50-50 mix. It's a thick mix, but it's not chest, okay? Chest would be much more the older kind of belt. You know, who was it earlier that was asking about that? I forget who exactly.
Kathleen.
It was Kathleen. Yes, Kathleen was asking about that. She was saying, you know, that's why I feel like I have too outdated of a sound, is because she's driving chest through the middle voice. Most musical theater is written quite high, and we can't be in head voice because then you've lost the battle. But we want to be in mix. So there's your answer. Work out a great mix. Okay. And again, don't pawn off M2. No twangy, resonant kind of things. That's not mix. All right. That's not belting. That's something else. Okay. So we want that good mix. Now we did it. We did it. Okay. We answered one question from all here today. That makes me happy. Everybody got their answer. Great stuff. So we're going on to second questions, and this next one is from Jake. Jake says, I follow your YouTube videos and I noticed you combine a lot of vocal methodologies from classical to contemporary. What's your background and how are you so diverse in your method of teaching? That was a very nice encouragement within a question, Jake. I never wanted to be a voice teacher. I said it's the last thing I'll ever do, last thing I'd ever want to do. And I tell the story, if you want to watch the full story, in episode 50 of Voice Lessons to the World, as to how I got here today, fulfilling my calling, doing what I was meant to do on this earth. A lot of times the things that you're meant to do are things that you didn't know you were supposed to do, or that you said, anything else but that, and then you find yourself fulfilling what was to be your destiny. That is my story, okay? So I never wanted to do it, but once I realized that it was my calling, I said, let me put everything, whole soul, whole heart into this, full on. Let me do this with the greatest excellence I can. That mission continues to this day. I'm not done. I started off as a classical singer. I studied with a Metropolitan Opera singer who's by the name of Richard Fracker. He's the head of the Michigan State University voice department, wonderful man of the voice. And I had a big fat opera sound. And but then I had a heart for musical theater. And I couldn't be, 5'7" and blonde and singing, can't do that. So I auditioned for musical theater programs. I got into one of the finest in the country, University of Michigan, where I studied musical theater and Broadway with some of the best. And I got to New York City and I was ready to make it as an actor. And they said, we don't want your opera sound. We don't want your musical theater sound. These days we're doing pop and rock. So I said, oh boy, and I had to find the best pop and rock instructors and really learn my pop and rock sound. And I met Aaron Hagen, the teacher of Ariana Grande and several others, and he's a world-class pop technician, and I mentored under him. Along the way, I had classical instruction from David Jones, the great David Jones, and I read about every vocal book you could find, and studied with the NYVC Vocal Pedagogy Association. Sorry to get so personal, but you asked. I have a very diverse background and I continue to seek out info from all different systems and ways. I don't believe that there is one set vocal method. I believe that you need to take the student that you're working with and listen to what their goals are, where they want to be, what sounds they want to make, and design something just for them so that they can grow in their own methodology, their own way. And this is what I teach in our voice teacher training program. I teach voice teachers as well as singers. I teach them all the pedagogical tools and then help them be creative artists so that they can use a wealth of info to empower other singers, okay? That's what it's about for me. It's not the New York vocal coaching way. It's not a brand, it's not a method. It's just lots of good stuff and sharing. All right. Jan Barros, Justin, is there some technique for me to have better breath duration? I mean, my breath is okay, but I've seen people belt 20-second long notes, and I don't know how to train to get to this point. Is there some exercise you recommend? Yes, there is. We're going to address the physiology first, Jan. First, the physiology. How are you taking your inhale? It should be ribs and belly, but do you have tight ribs? All right. Are they getting good expansiveness? If not, you need to do serious stretching and breathing to open up your ribs. Your ribs are the house of your lungs. If you aren't getting them to expand, you need to. So lots of good stretching and expansiveness. Okay. I also recommend cardiovascular health. Okay. Getting on the cardio machine, whatever. Make sure you have good lung function. Next is abdominals. Are you holding tension in your abs, your upper abs especially? Or can you get this? Release. You need to. That helps your diaphragm descend. Last, your low back. It's smaller, but yes, you can feel expansion back there. Address the opening first. Once you've done the opening, make sure that you've got long durations of things like hissing, fricatives. Can you last a super long time in a breathing exercise? Then coordinate it over to some sounds. Again, trills are classic for a reason. They make you control your air. Etc. Make sure you can do it. Then make sure your cord closure is super good, because if you're leaky, you're wasting air, okay? So we've talked about cord closure exercises. Take those steps and see if it makes a difference. It should. Next, back to Lean. Our friend Lean, saying his name right. Should singers continue singing during holidays, or is it good to give your practice a break? Well, you should give your practice a break. I don't know about holidays. I mean, if you want to sing on Christmas morning, it would be a great time to sing. But I would recommend a vocal Sabbath. Okay, a once a week rest. All right, it's just really healthy. That's why the Broadway singers, it's usually Monday for them. But the Broadway singers, they do 8 shows a week. All right, and that's a lot, serious lot. The Broadway singers that I know and that I've worked with, when it's Monday, they are shutting up. There is no practice. There is no extra stuff. There's no parties. There's just as much silence as they can possibly do, because the voice needs that rest. Now, that's certainly true of a high-level vocal athlete like a Broadway singer, but it's really true for all of us. You should take 1 day of vocal rest per week, okay? If you can't, then take mini rests like throughout your days, okay? But be conscious. The voice is not meant to drive it every single day, 365. Just like your body, you cannot train, every single day of the year. You make reverse progress if you do that. Same thing vocally. Got to have your rest. Karina, back to Karina. I tended to collapse at the finish line. Is that to do with sustainability? I think Karina, sorry, we have a little power issue. That's fine. You can get right there. Karina, it could be a very similar thing to what we talked about with Jan, about really making sure that you have enough and you can last. But one thing that might make some sense to you is if we're trying to keep the breath pressure the same throughout the phrase, or roughly the same. When we start off, we have like 100% tank. Let's say it's up at 100. All right. I have to really hold back that 100 at the beginning. But then once I'm at like 50, do I need to hold it back as much? No, it can start to flow a little bit more. And then at the end, when I have a very small tank, I might have to actually use even more to keep that breath pressure fairly constant throughout the phrase. So if you're just dying at the finish line, think about putting, as I say, an exclamation point at the end of your phrase instead of a ellipses. There's a whole episode on this. It's a quick singing tips episode. Forget which one it is. But it's in there. It might be like 21 or something like that. It's the one where I talk about walking the whole distance of Manhattan. Check out that quick singing tips episode. It's one of those. Oh, Kathleen Bennett with a follow-up question. How do I know I'm in head dominant mix versus pure head voice? Head dominant mix coordinates with chest, Kathleen. As light as it may be, it still coordinates with chest. Okay, so that means if I drag it down, it doesn't blip. Okay, here's an example. Ooh, oh boy. Ooh. Ah, first one, head voice or male falsetto. Ooh. Ooh. You hear the top note out going, oh! I'm going, ooh. But it's just enough chord closure of a TA variety, just enough mix that when I bring it down to chest, it doesn't, all right? So female head dominant mix still has to have a little something, something. Otherwise, you're gonna get that blip. Same thing, male falsetto, drag it down, it will blip. Males, if you're in a head dominant mix, females, head dominant mix, it does coordinate with chest voice, even though it's light sounding. Awesome. Terry, hey Justin, the most frustrating part of my voice is no volume and breaking, especially when coming down from higher notes across the F above middle C. Yep, yeah, easy one, Terry. Work the contemporary stuff. All right, you're asking me about F6 and stuff like that. That sounds like you're working the top. If you're cracking on F like that, it shows me that you're not belting, okay? Or you're not developing a mix. You're not taking M1 stuff up. You got to take M1 stuff up and M2 stuff down so that they'll blend. Females that are cracking on F4, that means that you're not doing enough of the beef work dragged up. So you got to work on chest voice, you got to work on chest dominant mix, all of those blends of mix. That's the stuff you're going to work on. Females, just a good rule of thumb. Eventually, if you do your 1 step forward, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, whoever said that before, if you do that for enough time, I've never met a female, never, that couldn't eventually get the E flat 5. That's my litmus test. E flat 5. I want that note for every female over time. Mix, not head voice, mix. Okay, so Terry, right now you're cracking on that one. That means you haven't done enough. Yeah? All right. Let's even do 2 more, because then we've gotten 2 for every, yeah, we're gonna do 2 more. We're close to our hour, but we're gonna just do 2 more. It's gonna be fun. Sarah W, how high can belting mix be? That kind of answered that, didn't it? Are there physical individual boundaries, or does it just depend on technique? In opera, I'm a high soprano, and I can reach the high F if that helps. It does help, Sarah, it does. I've never met a soprano with a high F that couldn't eventually belt the F below it. So that should give you good encouragement. F5. I know you can work to belt that F5, okay? How high can women belt? Sometimes with the right kind of work and physiology, you can get to B flat. That's about the highest I ever work with people. B flat 5. Okay, close to the C6. Okay. You hear like Demi Lovato, Tori Kelly, Ariana do those sounds sometimes. They're not very common. Like I'm encouraging you, get up to the E flat. Get that down. If you can sing the E flat, females, you can sing so much music. I think most will be able to do E and F eventually. Sarah, you, yes. But this extra stuff, the G, the A, the B flat, that's kind of bonus. It's cool. But actually what's funny is the M2 sounds okay that high. It doesn't sound like, oh, it's a disappointment they couldn't belt it. It still sounds kind of okay. So you'd be all right even if you couldn't belt a high G. All right, last question, and we're wrapping up for the day. Jiho Kim, again. Hey, Justin, again. Thanks for answering my first question. In addition to Jan's question, is incorporating nasal resonance also important on sustaining long notes? What a fantastic question. Nobody asked about the nose today. Yes. It isn't the source of the success, but it's a contributing factor to overall success. What do I mean? Nasal resonance just makes your voice work better. It isn't directly related to sustains, which is why I hesitate, because sustains have mostly to do with your breath pressure and your chord closure relationship. Now, nasal resonance does impact your chord closure a bit. It makes it lighter and helps you with longer vocal cords. So in a certain way, I suppose it does help. Yeah, because it sort of lightens the instrument. But I can't say that it would help everybody. Somebody's problem might be that they're too light and they're leaking, and the nasal might not help them. So it's not universally going to help you with sustains, but it is universally a helpful thing in voice, okay? Sustains at their core will be your breath pressure, vocal cord relationship. And with that, I bow to you, good people. It is such a honor and pleasure to be with you once a month to share some time on a Sunday and go deep into these topics. And you guys are just so intelligent and so driven for vocal excellence. And I'm just so blessed to be a part of that in any ways that I can. Check out a few things. I think we've got some new videos coming out. Brendan's doing some new stuff, and some new quick singing tips and voice lessons to the world will be coming out. I have written a book. It is called Sing Like Never Before. If you would like to have updates on the book, go to singlikeneverbefore.com and just type in your email. It's going to be released in 2020. I think you'll really like this book. It's going to help you. So it's not released yet, but friends like you get to know about it. So go to Sing Like Never Before and just sign up for updates so that you know when it is officially released and all of that. But we'll see you next month, in the month of December. In the meantime, please do visit Brendan's live chat in the month of November, because he's the man, vocal genius. Please have time with Brendan as well. And we'll see you next month. Thank you again, good folks.